Let's talk about books. I have to say, March was an incredible reading month for me, not to brag, and I feel like I made progress on series I'm in the middle of. I did start a new series as well, and I was on, dude, I'm like addicted to audiobooks right now. Most of these books were audiobooks, and it just seems that that's just like the theme for 2026 for me is audiobooks over physical books. I did read physical books obviously as well, but the majority was audiobooks though, which is just so interesting. Let's jump right in and talk about all the books I read in March. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Hannah. I love to talk about books, make content about books, and read books. And thank you so much for joining me today. We will be talking about all the books I read in March. So let's get started. Starting off strong, I continued my Throne of Glass journey with Queen of Shadows and Empire of Storms. And can I just say that these were both 5-star reads, and I feel like probably at the best point in the series so far. Like, I am enjoying this like nobody's business. So Queen of Shadows, I think where I'm up to now, I think I have to say Queen of Shadows is my favorite. I just love that everything that happened with the main character. I loved all the new POVs we got. The plot like thickened like nobody's business, and I was just obsessed and could not put this down. I'm normally not one to pick up the next book in the series right away, but I could not resist jumping straight back into Empire of Storms. I just had to know what happened next, and the cliffhanger on this one nearly sent me over the edge. Well, it did send me over the edge. I collapsed. It was a lot to process. I have seen a lot of people doing the recommended tandem read with this, so Empire of Storms and simultaneously reading Tower of Dawn. I gotta be honest, I just didn't really want to do the admin of that, of like switching between books, because I knew it would also take me twice, maybe 3 times as long to finish it. So I just jumped straight in and will just be reading Tower of Dawn, like reading in publication order, and maybe when I do a reread I'll do like a tandem read, but I did decide to just read this as it is, and I have to say I really enjoyed it, and we'll see what my experience is of the next one. I next picked up Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. Carly Fortune also wrote One Golden Summer, which was one of my top favorite romance books of 2026, and this is the book that comes before that one and is about Persephone or Percy and Sam's love story, which happens when they're teenagers. They fall in love, have all these summers together, and then basically all these years later as adults, she comes back to this small town that they fell in love with for his mom's funeral, and they kind of rehash what went wrong in their relationship. I have to say I did really like this, but to me it wasn't as strong or as good as One Golden Summer. Like, it just lacked, to me, the issues they were kind of dealing with were kind of more to do with them being so young when they got together, and less to do with, like, in my opinion, like who they are as people now. So I just like didn't connect to it as much as I did One Golden Summer. Doesn't mean to say I didn't enjoy it. I did really enjoy it, and I rated it 4 stars, mostly just because of I just like Carly Fortune's writing, and it was a really lovely story, and I did like how it all came together in the end, and there was a lot of emotional depth. I just think I didn't connect to it as much as I did One Golden Summer, but I'm really glad to be continuing reading Carly Fortune's books, and I'm very excited for her new release, which is coming out very soon. I then picked up The Night We Met by Abby Jimenez, which is and was a very anticipated release for me, and she is one of my favorite authors, and I gave this 5 stars. I know there has been a lot of controversy, I don't know if that's the right word, but a lot of like, I feel like you either love it or you don't love it kind of conversation around this book right now on like Book Talk and YouTube and stuff. This follows Larissa and Chris, but basically Larissa meets Chris and then her boyfriend Mike on the same night. They both offer her a ride home. She decides to pick Mike, and basically that's not who she should have picked, or like who she ends up later on falling in love with. And it's quite tricky because the guy she ends up falling in love with is the boyfriend, Mike's best friend, Chris. Does that make sense? I feel like I've just explained that in a really confusing way. So for a lot of the book, it is a bit of a tricky trope to navigate because she is with the person that you're not really cheering on and keeps making mistake after mistake. I really loved it because I really felt like that is a very difficult trope to talk about and to navigate. And I feel like Abby Jimenez did it with such grace and such like treated it so delicately, and it is just like a very nuanced story to tell of like you're with someone but actually you're kind of having this emotional connection with someone else, and like that is just like a complicated thing to write about, and I thought she did it so well. I would say like it took me a while to get into it, and I would say the first like 100-200 pages I was like, it was like a bit slow getting into, but the payoff at the end was really good. I just think like the end could have been longer and like, you know, it could have been shortened, if that makes sense. So like less of the beginning bit and more of the end of like when they actually like get together and stuff. And I think I liked it more than than last year's release, Say You'll Remember Me. But that's just personal preference. And I wonder if it's like a personal thing because I met my now husband when I was with somebody else and was navigating a breakup when we were like becoming friends. So I don't know if I kind of like just relate to this on like a personal level, like not to this extreme. It is like an emotional read. It's not like a fluffy romance. I really enjoyed this and it was really fun to read a new release like at the time it was coming out. I then picked up 2 audiobooks back to back, which is a series that I have seen a lot about. So I just was like, I just want something fluffy and fun kind of to mix it up. I listened to The Deal and The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. I rated The Deal 3.5 stars and The Mistake 3 stars. This basically is a college ice hockey sports romance. These books are like a funny little goofy time, but also have a lot more emotional depth than I was expecting, and kind of took me off guard in some ways because I wasn't really thinking there was like, it was just going to be a little bit of spice and a little bit of fun, a little bit of romance, and everyone has a happy ending. And while that is the case, it also had a lot of like emotional depth, like navigating quite deep topics for the characters, and I think I really like that. So the first one, The Deal, follows Graham and Hannah, who she's having like gone through a really bad breakup, so she's kind of like does this like fake dating situation to kind of with the like star hockey player to just be able to like find some popularity to like start dating and like having fun, and then obviously they have their own thing that unfolds. The Mistake follows Grace and Logan, who basically have like this romance, and then he messes it up and has to win her back, and he's obviously like a player, and he's like doesn't you normally have to like win girls over, but like she just is like not having it, so it's like a second chance sort of romance. I just think there was like a bit more emotional depth within the first book, so I just like liked it a bit more. That doesn't mean to say I didn't like The Mistake at all. I did really like it. I just think I connected more with the characters in the first book. So if you're looking for like a short fun time with like a good story as well, like it is full of depth, it is really like a good romance story, it's not just like basic, like I think that's the kind of like misconception about these books. I would highly recommend, and I'm currently listening to the 3rd book and gonna continue the series and also pick up the Briar U series just because I think I'm missing heated rivalry, so I need some hockey in my life. I then picked up my first ever Kristen Hannah book, so this is The Great Alone, and this follows a girl, Lenny, who moves to Alaska with her family in the 70s and lives off-grid in this like tiny small town, and kind of her experience growing up there and the kind of tumultuous situation that she's in with her dad, who is a alcoholic and not treating her mom very well, and all the things that unfold with that. It ends up basically, this may be minor spoiler, she ends up having to leave Alaska only to come back later on in the book for this kind of like redemption story with all the things that she had to leave behind. This was a 4-star read for me. The reason it didn't make it to a 5-star, although I really enjoyed it, it made me cry. It was really like a really gripping, at times very sad story. I just felt like the last, I want to say the last 20%, it all just resolved so quickly, and which just felt like unmatched with the first half of the book, or more than first half of the book that was like quite slow, very detailed, like telling you everything that was going on, and then suddenly it was like boom, 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 now we're all fine, happy ending. And so I think I just would have liked there to be a bit like, for things not to happen so quickly at the end, or for the rest of the book to be as fast-paced as the end was. It just felt a bit like two different books in some ways, so that's why I rated it 4 stars. And it is a 4-star because it did make me cry. It really gripped me, and it is like, was a really beautiful, well-told story. Like, Kristen Hanna's writing is actually stunning and so descriptive and so beautiful, so I would definitely recommend it. And let me know what other Kristen Hanna books you have read, because I would love to pick up more of them. I'm thinking I'm gonna read The Women or The Nightingale next. The next book I picked up, very similar vein to the one I just talked about, which is The Bright Years by Sarah Demoff. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And I rated this 3.5 stars. This is basically a story of generational trauma, to put it lightly. So it follows this girl who meets her husband, has a baby, and then eventually you get that baby's, the daughter's POV, as the story goes on. And it's basically similar to The Great Alone, where it's navigating some pretty deep issues of alcoholism, of grief, generational trauma, abuse. And so definitely like go into that knowing it's going to be talking about those things. And I think what I liked about this was, even though it was slow at times, I really liked how things weren't tied up in this like pretty bow. Like, things, it was really realistic with how it resolved, if that makes sense. I think it just did a really good job of being like, no, things, this is something we still carry even though like we're not experiencing this anymore. And I think that was just like, it is such like a nuanced thing to talk about. And that's what I mean. Like, this month was full of some really quite heavy books. And that's why I mix it up with some like fun hockey romance, because I needed like that kind of like mental break in between these quite heavy reads. And I think the reason it was 3.5 is probably just because it just felt a bit slow at times, and I would have almost wanted like more to happen. It felt like there was like this one big reveal thing that happened, and that was the main thing that happened. And yeah, I just feel like there also could have been like more POVs and stuff of like the different characters that were like within the situation that was happening. I feel like that's all very vague, but I just felt like it was a bit slow at times, and kind of like wanted just like a bit more juice. It was a very stunning and very moving read, and 3.5 is a good rating. Like, I'm not saying I didn't like it, I'm just saying it's probably not a book I'm gonna like come back to. What am I gonna talk about next? Then I picked up something really fun and enjoyable. Not that the last books weren't fun and enjoyable, but I picked up another new release, which is And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. So this is part of her like Heartstrings, I think that's what the series is called, like Heartstrings Interconnected series. And this follows, basically it's like an enemies to lovers romance story. So it follows 2 meteorologists, Jackson and Delilah. Delilah is like happy-go-lucky, always dressing up in these funny costumes, and Jackson is very like neat, predictable, like follows all the rules sort of thing. And basically they get teamed up to cover this huge like snowstorm that's coming in, and they basically have to navigate that together while being like very like opposites attract. I really love this. I have to say I really love this more than I liked First Time Caller. I thought the male character in this was just like way more green flags than the last one, and I thought he was so funny. There was such good like banter and like sarcasm. It was a romance story that was like, I'm smiling because I was just kicking my feet the entire time and like giggling. It was just so fun, but also still had that like emotional depth that I crave within books that isn't just like, oh, they're just going to be together, is like so predictable and it just like goes like this. Like it like the way the story developed was like not what I was expecting, but like in a really good way. And it just also had like tons of humor. I think that's what BK Borison does so well. It's just like funny. And so I was really happy to have like another read amongst all the serious trauma dumping books I read. There was joy and there was fun. And that's what I'm grateful for. Guys, did I say what I rated that book? What did I rate that book? And now back to you is I'm gonna rate it 4 stars. I can't remember if I've said it already on a clip, and I really, really enjoyed it. Finally, I ended the month on another kind of heart-wrenching book, but this was a memoir, so I don't really know what my rating system is when it comes to nonfiction, so I'm just gonna not rate it and just say that I really recommend it. This was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. So Jeanette McCurdy was one of the stars on iCarly, if you have heard of that show, and was like in the kind of like Nickelodeon world. And I read her debut fiction book earlier this year, Half His Age, and I loved her narration in Half His Age, so I knew I wanted to pick up her is it a biography or a memoir? Not sure, but I knew I wanted to pick it up because her narration was so good. So I listened to this as an audiobook, and it was just like such a good story, and it was just really just well told, talking about her experience with her mom of basically being forced to be a child actress, and then her issues with an eating disorder, with alcohol, and just like navigating fame and relationships at like such a young age, such an impressionable age, and just the impact that her mom had in that as well, and the role she played, and the kind of, you know, trauma that comes with that. So it was really well told, and I would definitely really, 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 really recommend this book and her fiction novel, Half His Age. I just think she's just like a fantastic writer and fantastic storyteller, and I just love hearing about people's lives, and it was just really fascinating and really gripped me. And it is also quite a short audiobook, so you can finish it in a day or two like I did, and yeah, I really recommend it. So what am I trying to say? Another book that made me grateful for the life that I'm living. Honestly, a lot of these books, I'm like now looking at this list and I'm like, yo, this was quite intense. Like, April needs to be more chill because that was a lot. Fingers crossed that April is a bit more... Actually, you know what? I love reading about trauma. Fuck it. I love reading books that have depth. Let's just be honest. But I also love reading funny books like Now Back to You, and I love reading fantasy. So, you know what? April will be what April will be. It is my birthday month, so stay tuned. I'm actually filming this the day before my birthday, so I'm very excited to be turning 30 tomorrow. That is all for me for my March reads. This is going up a bit later than I planned, but it's still a slay. It would mean the world to me if you liked and subscribed, and I post new videos every week on Sundays at 11 a.m. So make sure you come back for some more reading content, cozy vibes, and just chilling. So I'll see you on Sunday. Bye!